Welcome to the second day of these hearings. I'm going to invite Mr. Richmond to take matters forward from this point.
Good morning, sir. The first commemoration is to Debbie Lamprell from flat 161. The presentation is going to be by Michael Volpe from Holland Park Opera, and I'd invite him to the stage.
Thank you.
Behalf of
Miriam.
Debbie's mother.
Yeah.
And she's called Miriam.
Yeah.
And I think Miriam is with us this morning. Thank you.
And these are her words.
Thank you.
My name is Miriam Lamprell. I'm 79 years of age, and I lost my only child, Debbie, in the fire at Grenfell Tower. I've asked Mike Volpe to read this because it's impossibly hard for me to stand up and read this out. But I am here, and I will be coming to the inquiry, as difficult as it will be to find out what happened to Debbie. I had Debbie in the maternity hospital in Walthamstow in 1971 and brought her home to the flat in Hyams Park, where I still live. Debbie and her father, my husband Reg, lived there together right through her childhood, and she stayed with us all through her early adulthood when she took her first jobs, until Debbie moved out when she was 31. We were an incredibly close and happy family. We loved Debbie, and Debbie was devoted to us. We were blessed with Debbie in a way that is very special. Because Debbie was an only child, we encouraged her to have her friends around to play as much as possible. She wasn't a pushy person, even then, but she was always extremely popular, and she always loved other people's company and was always surrounded by other people. So the flat was teeming with other children. They loved to play on our balcony, which overlooked the fields and the park that are opposite our house. Debbie always mixed with people from all sorts of backgrounds. There were kids from the local estate, and there were kids who lived in private houses. We lived in a flat, but they all loved coming to play because Debbie brought them together. Where we lived was almost like the country. Right opposite our flat was a huge field and a park, which was a perfect place for Debbie and her friends to play. There was a big field at the back of the school, so the kids had a whale of a time growing up. When it was winter and it snowed, they used to get plastic bags and slide down the slopes in these big black bin bags. It was a lovely way to grow up, all of them together. She just loved being with other people. And I remember every night when it was time to come in, she'd say, "It's always me first, just because I live on the doorstep. It's not fair that it's always me that has to come in first." Even at the funeral, several of Debbie's friends came up and told me, "I remember Debbie would always complain you'd make her go in first." Even as an adult, she'd complain that it was always me. She didn't want to go in because she loved people. She loved being with people and having fun. When I think of Debbie, I think of her laughing. She was always laughing. In many ways, she had a blissful childhood, not because it was so privileged, but because we were all happy. Reg and I encouraged her to do lots of things. We wanted her to try lots of different things, a bit of everything, so she could choose what she liked. She did ballet and tap lessons. We took her to the theatre and to see the ballet. She learned the guitar. We went to museums together. I've always brought her up to believe, so she was christened and confirmed and went to Sunday school. She adored sport. She played tennis. She loved watching darts, snooker, and even drag racing, which she'd go and see a lot when she was older. In her younger days, she used to play snooker, but as she got older, I'd say she was more of an armchair sports fan. She was always a big supporter of Spurs. She loved watching Spurs, especially with her dad. Debbie really worshipped her dad. People used to say, whenever you looked for Reg, Debbie was there. She was his treasure.
There's no rush, Mike. Take your time.
And she felt the same about him. They would go off blackberrying together, but by the time they came back, there'd be a big tribe of kids with them both. That's what her childhood was like, fun and good. We both worked hard. Reg was a painter and a decorator, and I worked as a dinner lady in the local school for disabled children until I was 73. But we gave Debbie everything we could, and Debbie was always appreciative and wanted to make the most of all of these experiences. We used to go to museums in Kensington and Chelsea and up to Hyde Park, and I think that's where she got the idea that she'd like to live more in that area. It's very different than where she spent her childhood, much more urban, not really my thing. But I think we'd inspired Debbie to find a way of living which suited her, which made her feel happy and fulfilled, because she was happy and fulfilled. When she left school, she started to work in a bank, but really, she wanted to work in hospitality. She loved working with people, looking after them, making sure they had a good time. So she found a job in Holiday Inn in Gloucester Road, which is how she ended up living in West London. She lived at home with us, but the travelling to West London, especially late at night or very early in the morning, got to be too much. It wasn't particularly safe for a young woman travelling on her own, so she moved out to be near her work. I was always worried about her living in the bedsits, or the studio flats as she called it. It really wasn't appropriate for someone in her 30s who worked so hard. The conditions weren't good, and I used to badger her to put her name down with the council, to get somewhere proper to live, somewhere safe and decent. Of course, it feels terrible to have done that now, because she was given the flat in Grenfell. She loved her little flat, and she kept it lovely, but the refurbishment became a nightmare. She had problems with the electricity, problems with the heating. She was very upset about having the boiler in the corridor right when you open the front door. That was very upsetting to her. But I used to think, well, at least when I go, she's got a roof over her head. My husband died 8 years ago, and that was a heavy blow to us both. I realized I had to pull myself together, and I said to Debbie that she should concentrate on herself, getting her own life back together. But she was incredibly kind and supportive. If anything, it brought us closer together. She would text me every morning, and if for whatever reason she had not heard by 9 o'clock, she'd be ringing the neighbours, making sure they went round to see if everything was all right. And then she would ring me at night, or if she was working late at the opera, she would text me in the morning and ring to talk in the afternoon, then always text at night to say she was home safely, so I wouldn't worry. Mum, I'm home, everything's okay, love you. She would have me over to stay with her, often for a week at a time. We'd go all around the area, we'd go to Hyde Park together, but recently as my legs got worse, it was difficult to visit. The problems with the lifts made it not very nice to be in there when Debbie was at work, because you couldn't get out easily. She really loved her work. She was really, really happy with her life. You rarely see my Debbie without a smile. People took to Debbie because she was an easy, friendly person. She would help anybody. She loved traveling. Sometimes I'd go with her. Sometimes she'd go with a friend. We'd been to Paris, Germany, Holland, Greece, and Spain. But she went further abroad to places like Sri Lanka. She loved exploring new places, finding out new things, meeting new people. She just really loved life. But she also loved London and her home. She counted herself as blessed. She would visit me every Saturday morning, and she would always bring me 2 scratch cards. And she'd say, I don't know why I bring you these scratch cards, because we don't need money. We're so lucky with what we've got. And that's how she was, happy. She was happy with her friends, with her job, with her life, her neighbours, with living in Ladbroke Grove. And that's the cruel thing. She did not want more. She felt blessed. My neighbour downstairs used to say she knew when Debbie had come to visit because she could hear the laughing coming from upstairs. People envied me because she was so good to me, and people came up to me even now and say, for that short time you had more love from Debbie than most people get in a whole lifetime. It wasn't until I lost Debbie that I realised how many friends she had and what she meant to so many people. The kids who used to play with her had mostly moved away to the Scilly Isles or Wales or Brighton, but they all came to the funeral. And one of her friends came up to me and said, I know you've lost her and she's gone, but she's left so many footprints. And she said, you would not believe how many people loved her. And it's the lives she touched I had no idea about that have moved me most. I've been told how hugely popular and respected Debbie was at Opera Holland Park, where she worked as a safety officer. So many people there, even the singers and orchestra players, as well as all the patrons, knew and loved Debbie, not just because she was responsible for checking things and looking after them, but because she was always interested and concerned with their families and lives. I'm so pleased that an inscribed stone has been laid at the theatre in Holland Park in Debbie's memory, right at the spot that she would sit and listen to the performances, a permanent tribute to her. I got a message from a lady who lived in the walkways, and she wrote to me. She had no idea how to contact me, but she eventually tracked me through her carer at Opera Holland Park. And she wrote to me to say that she and Debbie had become friends, and she loved Debbie, and she had said a mass for her. Someone I had no idea about. To me, we were just a normal family, and Debbie was just a normal person. But the morning of the funeral, the whole school where I was a dinner lady stood outside as we passed. The headmaster, his wife, the teachers, because they knew Debbie. They remembered her. And although I had no idea, they loved her too. I am bereft without her. If she had died a normal death, I would have been able to hold her or comfort her and say goodbye. But I feel a part of me has been ripped out. Nothing seems worth it anymore. She touched so many lives with her kindness and her smile. So many people come up to me and mention her smile, because she did have a smile all of the time. I don't really know what made her so positive. It's not that she had so much money or anything, but she had her freedom. She did what she wanted to do, and she loved people. And I think that made her rich. The night she died, she texted me, I've got him, Mum. All's well. Good night. God bless. I thought, that's okay. She's safe. I went to bed and I got up in the morning and I didn't have a daughter. Her body was burned in the tower, so to say she was cremated is a strange thing. But her ashes were laid to rest on the 20th of April in the city of London. Crematorium, next door to her father. Sorry. I am an old woman with nothing else left. And maybe it's taken losing Debbie to realise we weren't normal. Debbie was an exceptional, extraordinary person. And I was completely blessed to have her as my daughter.
Thank you, Mike.
Mrs. Lamprell, thank you very much. That was a most moving tribute.
We have, in fact, got some more to come, sir. I think, firstly, if the lights could go down. This is the step which was created at Holland Park Opera, which is the step we've heard about where Debbie sat when she was working. And so anybody who goes to Holland Park Opera will be reminded of the love that those at that particular venue had for her. There was a memorial service for Debbie, and we are going to see a part of that, and I warn everybody now that it's a very emotional and moving piece of footage.
Today's important for a very good reason, not just our sadness about Debbie. Two people here who are friends of Debbie's are going to say something, then James will speak.
As Burton said, she touched the lives of many of us, and she became our friend along the way. Let's remember the good times that we shared. Her smile, her greeting, her empathy, her drive to help others, her kindness and always putting others first. Debbie, we love you. We're filled with sadness and grief at this present moment. We're not ready to say goodbye. So we wish you eternal peace. Debbie, our friend, our sister.
I've been asked to say a few words as well, and there is going to be a few because it just hasn't sunk in yet. I've been here for 8 seasons, and front of house is my summer family. We may not see each other much or at all outside of the season, but for 2 months we're a group who have each other's back, especially on Combat Picnic Fridays. We catch up, we say hello again to old friends and colleagues. Sadly, Debbie won't be here to do that again, but she's always going to be part of my lovely family.
And it's great to see you guys here today. Deb was always family orientated. I don't think, and I said this to Mike the other day and he agrees, I don't think I ever saw Debbie one single day when she didn't ask me how my mum was. 600, 800 times, even if it was consecutive days. It's about family. There's no used word in our business, but this is our family. You know, a lot of guys coming here today to show you that we're a team, and you know, we will carry on remembering her. Mike and I will talk about different things in the future about how to remember her. Not at the moment, you know, you're the centre of our thoughts, what we can do to help you, and I can honestly say that we just loved having Debbie here, absolutely loved her. And we're going to do some music in a moment that was arranged by Will, who wrote Alice in Wonderland for us, and who has written things for the Queen. And when he knew what it was for today, he said he'd come in and play himself. It's a thing about, it's a different kind of place here, and it's important to different kind of it. And so thank you for giving it to us. We're going to have a moment's silence, and then we're going to sing something. There's an arrangement of Amazing Grace. If anyone wants to join in his arrangement, it's probably best if you go along with the melody rather than anything else. But just let's have a moment's silence to think about our beautiful friend.
Thank you.
say that's absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. Miriam, Debbie, you know, we're talking about one of us. We lost one of our own, and thank you. And you sitting here, Debbie would sit here many, many, many times listening to these guys sing over there. So it's fitting. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
I don't know about anybody else, but I'd like a minute, please. So can I ask you if you'd rise for a few minutes?
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Richmond.
Sir, as you know, there were many victims of the Grenfell fire. The 71 who lost their lives as a direct result of the fire, their loved ones, those who were injured, those who lost their homes and their communities. The next commemoration is for Pili Burton, who died sadly in January of this year. She was a vibrant and much loved member of the Grenfell community, and we are pleased and honoured to commemorate her life alongside those of her fellow residents from a community which she and her husband Nicholas, who will present the commemoration, both loved.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just going to read the pen portrait.
Can I just ask you, Nicholas, just bring that microphone in front of you so we can hear you properly. All right, take your time.
Is that better?
Much better, thank you.
Okay. My name is Nicholas Burton, and I live in Grenfell Tower with my wife Pili, Maria de Pilar, for over 33 years. I was born close to the tower, and my family were all from around the area, and I grew up living and playing around Latimer Road and Lancaster West Estate. Personally, I had a difficult childhood, but the area was really a great place to grow up. Everybody was in and out of everybody else's houses, contrary to some preconceptions that it was a very safe place to grow up. Because it was such a tight-knitted community, people had no fears of breaking-ins or anybody. So everybody kept their keys on a piece of string, which was grabbed through the letterbox. So I remember those days. And in the 70s were exciting times, and there was so much going on. But the main thing was it was a community, and the community was built up of layer upon layer of people coming into the area. People who came into this country to help build things here. My father came over from St. Lucia to drive the buses. There was a big West Indian community and Spanish community stretching back from the Spanish Civil War. So I grew up with Spanish kids in my class at Holland Park and a whole range of kids that I grew up with. Around 1983, when I was still in my sixth form, they asked me if I wanted to come to this Spanish discotheque on a Sunday. And it's called Fubert's, which was just off Carnaby Street. And that's where I met Pili. She was amazing, flamboyant, very friendly. She talked to everybody, and I mean everybody. If she got into the lift, by the time you got out, she knew everybody's name and their family history. She loved dancing. She was incredibly magnetic, wonderful person. But because she was a bit older than me, I thought she was out of my league. Pili actually lived in the tower, and she was one of the very first residents, the only person that ever lived in her flat. She moved in the early 70s, so that after Fubert's, we would walk back to Labatt Grove, and Pili would invite us to her flat, where we played cards and listened to music with her parents, who were always there. Pili was born in a place called Ferrol, and that's in Galicia, in the province of Coruña, in the northwest corner of Spain. In this area, which is a sort of naval dockyard, Pili's mother's family were all in the Navy. They're very wealthy, very high status. Her father came from an enormous family, so if you walk down around Ferrol, you couldn't help but bump into some of Pili's family. After Pili's mother was widowed during the war, I don't know which war in Spain, sorry, she married Antonio, Pili's father. And Pili was born in the 40s and grew up in Ferrol. The family also took in children of two friends and brought them up alongside Pili. They would always call themselves brother and sister. Manny, who became a professor of fine arts in Savannah in America, and also Jose Maria, who was also an academic and became a professor in London. The family had various businesses, but they decided to come to London when Pili was still in her teens. They bought a large house in North Kensington for about £6,000, if only now. Being very feisty and outgoing, Pili learned English very quickly. So well that she didn't even have a hint of a Spanish accent, even though she spoke fluent Spanish, also fluent Portuguese, Italian, and French. After school, she started work, initially in the catering. She met her first husband when she was around 17 years old, and also fell pregnant and had a son, Victor. Soon after moving into Grenfell, she got divorced from Victor's father. When I met Pili, she was living in Grenfell, and Victor, her son, had already had a young family of his own, living in Clarendon Walk. Gradually, a relationship developed, and I moved in sock by sock. And my mother asked, "Where's all your clothes?" And I explained I have a girlfriend, and she's around your age. Right. Yeah, thank you. We were together for 34 years, and we got married in 2000 after being together for 16. There was always music in our house. People coming and going, lots of food, lots of friends, my wife's friends, her parents' friends, and lots of Spanish music. And her parents were very good singers. Her father sang in a Galician choir. And the Galician people are not like other Spanish people. They're really Celts, lots of red hair, blonde hair, blue eyes, green eyes. And also the music is very Celtic. Lots of bagpipes and dancing like Irish dancing. The Galician community around Portobello is very strong because there's a big Spanish school there. So when people come over from Galicia or any part of Spain, they'll also come to the Spanish school. There's always people around who Pili would invite to join us. But it wasn't just the Spanish community, the Portuguese community, also the Moroccans, the West Indian community with their music too. We all mixed together. Pili was very much part of all of this, and she loved reggae music a lot. And she danced to everything. You couldn't stop her. You could actually stop the whole family. And her father and mother just loved music as well. And even when they got much older, into their 80s, I'd come home from work and they'd be playing music incredibly loud, and I'd be telling them to turn it down. And I'd be saying to Pili, "This is the wrong way round." But I got on with all of them, her parents, who treated me like a son. Victor, her son, was actually a year older than me. And her first husband, when we went on holiday to Portugal, I met him and he was very nice to me. Everybody just got along. Food was very important. Pili's paella was internationally known. Everybody came to our house wanting paella. Everybody just loved her cooking. There was never anything delivered. Everybody wanted freshly cooked. I worked in the wine trade, so there's always excellent wine around. Food and music. We really had a fantastic life. Brilliant neighbours, like Debbie Lamprell, who was always in our house nattering with Pili.
Do you want to just grab yourself a glass of water?
Thank you very much. Pili was just brilliant with people. She always talked a lot. And we used to have a joke that men think that women talk a lot and women think that you talk a lot. So she really talked. She knew everybody on Portobello Road. You go past every store and it would be Pili, Pili, Pili. She knew everybody and everybody knew her. She was a very beautiful and could have chosen anybody really. I don't know why she chose me, but from when we got together, we were never apart. Pili loved fashion. She was always an amazing dresser, full of colours, totally flamboyant, but it was always her own style. She might go out and buy something for hundreds of pounds and then pull it with something that cost £2.99, and people would just go, wow, because she had an eye and an understanding how to put things together. She always understood how to carry things off. She had class and style and just knew what worked. She had a fabulous sense of style. She was very independent. She earned her own money, always worked, and she loved spending it dressing up, entertaining her family and friends. I love my wife, and I was in complete awe of her because the world generally revolved around her. Wherever she went, everybody was for Pili. She wasn't a princess or anything. She was just a people's person, talking to people, making friends. She was just an extraordinary woman. And she was like that at work. She worked as a contract manager for several years in several hospitals in and around the area, but at the end ended up at St. Charles Hospital for many years. She looked after the porters, domestics and catering staff. So she knew many people. She was a big personality in every hospital she worked in. Everybody knew Pili. And she was loved and respected because she really looked after everybody. It's difficult to comprehend how many lives she affected. Of course, her family were incredibly important. She was extremely proud of her son and her grandson and great-grandchildren. And as her parents grew older, they came to live with us in London. Before then, they used to spend 6 months in Spain and 6 months with us. And things were becoming more difficult for Pili's mother, who got sick. We nursed her together. And, sorry. And I was with her, holding her hand when she died at St. Charles Hospital. A year later, her father had a stroke and passed away. And this hit Pili hard. Pili was very distraught. And on the day of her father's funeral, we got up early to organise the food. And Pili was really upset. And she had just lost her mother and now her father. But then came a terrible news that her brother, Jose Maria, had just been killed. He had been in a terrible road accident and died underneath a lorry. It was an incredible blow for my wife. And I'm not too sure she ever recovered. The family was so close and so much part of each other's lives. It was devastating for her to lose everybody in such a short space of time. I tried to console her by taking her on holiday. Our last trip together was a drive around Europe. I decided to take Pili to see the French wine country. So we drove to Champagne and went around the Champagne vineyards. And then we drove to Burgundy and went around, like Clos Vosges and some of the other famous vineyards. We then went on to Switzerland, to Zurich, and spent some time with some friends. Then we drove on to Milan, where she found a shopping centre. She was overwhelmed with that one. From there, we drove to Venice. She loved Venice, and we drank champagne in a gondola. And then on to Florence. Wow, that just took her breath away. We had 5 days in Ostia on the beach, and then 3 days in Rome. She just loved every minute of it. But even so, something wasn't right. We came back and we realized Pili had the onset of dementia. And this changed our life completely. And around 2015, her condition became so bad that she had to give up work. It was a very difficult time for her. Our whole world came crashing down from being forced to give up work. It was a terrible blow. And she lived for other people, so being isolated, it was very hard for her. Of course, the stress and problems related to the refurbishment of the tower made everything worse. And we were leaseholders, and we bought our flat in 1994. So we were already involved in disputes with the council and the TMO, which you'll hear about probably in statements that were made. And the stress was upsetting, but terrible things for Pili to deal with. All I could do was try to make her feel secure and comfortable.
I think you're about to tell us now a little about the night of the fire, aren't you?
Yes. On the night of the fire, I was with my wife on the night of the fire, and we both fallen asleep on the sofa watching DVD, and I woke to discover the building was on fire. I've given a statement about this. But I can say that it was impossible to carry my wife down, it's actually about 40 flights of stairs. So we had to wait to be rescued. During the rescue, she had to be carried out by 4 fire officers, emerging comatized, with most of her clothes cut off. I tried to get to her, but I had to be given triage for smoke inhalation. I was convinced that my wife was dead, but miraculously she survived and was rushed to hospital. I was taken to the ambulance, and we were told we were following Pili to the same hospital. But when I got to Chelsea and Westminster, there was no sign of Pili. I was suffering badly from smoke inhalation, but I was in a panic about my wife. No one had any information about her or where she was, or let alone whether she was still alive. And it wasn't until the following day that I finally got a phone call to say Pili was at the Royal Free Hospital in Hampstead. Initially, I was refused permission to leave Chelsea and Westminster Hospital, but I eventually checked out to go and see Pili. When I got to the Royal Free, she was in a terrible state. She was suffering badly from the effects of inhalation, and I later learned that her body was cut and bruised all over. But the trauma has had a terrible effect on Pili's dementia. And she was very distressed. How do you explain what had happened to a person in her condition? That our house had gone, our dog had gone, our good friends and neighbours may have passed, and many friends were missing. And that our parents' ashes, which we kept in the flat, had gone. Everything was gone. It was just too much. So I had to try to explain with little bits of information to help her guide her through the trauma. Of course, I was still in trauma myself, but it was much harder for her. I was struggling with the effects of the fire myself, and then I was told a little later that my heart was dangerously enlarged and that I had a severe leaking valve and I would need an operation. So I had my operation on the 18th of December, and by this time my wife was in a care home and I was residing in a hotel. The operation didn't go too well and I needed more surgery at the end, and I was in intensive care for up to 6 days. It was now, of course, December the 25th, and I was desperate to see Pili. The hospital agreed to let me go, and I was recovering from my operation when Pili had a brain hemorrhage in early January, which caused a massive stroke. She was on life support in the hospital. The night of her stroke, I managed to say a few words to each other, but then she fell silent. After 2 weeks of life support, they told me there was nothing they could do. So she was put in a room. They gave me a mattress so that I can sleep on the floor. I had to stay there with her. I didn't want to leave the room. I just stayed there for the whole week, listening and holding her hand, just like I had done with her mother. On January 29th, Pili took her last breath. Just as her son walked in the room, it was as she had been waiting for him to be there. So she would have, and that's the way she would have wanted him to be there. Sorry. All that life, the essence of a person, how they lived their life was gone. It doesn't matter what religion or belief you have. It's just a very sad moment. We don't know what life is really. We don't really know what we are or who we are or what life has in store. But we're just truly blessed, and I'm truly blessed that I had 34 years with such a person. We had fun. We laughed. We got to go through life together, and it was wonderful. And this is all we can do. My wife used to tell me, don't worry about it. She used to like the Bob Marley song, don't worry about a thing, every little thing's gonna be all right. She loved that. She loved playing it again and again. Yeah, Three Little Birds by Bob Marley. And we played this at her funeral. She was cremated at Kensal Green Crematorium, where her parents had been cremated. There was a horse-drawn coach with the close friends following behind in limousines. We congregated at St Clement James Centre. where other people joined the concierge. And carried on up to Labatt Grove, and I suddenly realised there was more and more cars joining us until we got to the fire station. And I looked and saw the entire fire station crew with their engines were standing outside in a guard of honour. And all the fire officers had white roses. They stopped, and they came over and laid the white roses. And by this time I was a bit overwhelmed. But we continued up the Harrow Road and turned to the crematorium. And I couldn't believe my eyes. There was hundreds of people there. And every one of them was wearing incredible, colourful outfits, magnificent, flamboyant outfits. I had 34 years with Pili, and they were beautiful, glorious, wonderful years, filled with happiness, love and laughter. I adored her, and we shared it with everybody around us. She was unique, beautiful, exceptional person, and that it's who this tragedy has taken away. It took away our dignity and everything that we had in this world. But let me tell you, no matter what indignities my wife had to suffer, my Pili was perfect.
Nicholas, that was a very beautiful portrait. Can I ask you, because I've been wondering where that amazing picture was taken?
That was in Rome, in 2014.
She looks very happy.
Very. It's a beautiful picture. She was beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. That was a very moving tribute, and I feel very privileged to have heard it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So we have a bit of rearranging to do, so could I trouble you just to leave us for a moment?
Yes, of course.
Oh, thank you. I've been reminded. Forgive me. Thank heavens I've got people around who know what they're doing. I think you've done a PowerPoint for us, haven't you?
Yes.
Yes, well, thank you. I'm so sorry.
¿Grabando? Muy bien. Me llamo María del Pilar, pero toda la gente me llama Pili, ¿no? Como en España, lógico. Mando muchos recuerdos para tus papás, que no los conozco, pero me gustaría mucho conocerlos. También mando para tu novio, que aunque no lo conozco, como es gallego, y yo también, que yo soy del Ferrol, nacida allí, pues imagínate, fantástico. Y a tus suegros también. ¿Tienes suegro, perdón? A tus suegros. ¿Y qué más? Y, en fin, que estoy muy encantada de que tú estuvieras aquí, muy encantada. Y Francesca es adorable, no puede ser mejor chica. Cualquier persona puede vivir con ella, fíjate. Maravillosa. Con eso lo digo todo. Ahora va a hablar Nicky en inglés, lógico que él es inglés. Come on, say something.
Welcome to London.
Thank you
very much.
That's
No,
it.
please.
No, say something, Nicky,
I
please.
can't say nothing else.
What do you mean you can't say
Hola.
nothing else?
Okay.
No, in English, love. In
Come
English.
back, come back.
Oh, come back,
Good
all right. This is my husband. Ay, perdón, este es mi marido.
Bueno, pues nada, entonces,
Habla. Speak. Speak. Just say hello.
goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye. Okay, good luck.
I'm glad we didn't miss that. Thank you. I think I can now properly invite you to rise. Thank you.
Yes, of course.
Well, sir, I see the time is 11:15. I wonder if people might take a quarter of an hour if they want to stretch their legs or get a cup of tea and sit again at 11:30.
11:30?
Yes, please.
Yes, very well. We'll do
Thank
that.
you.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Richmond.
You caught the explanation I just gave, but we had a slight technical hitch, so apologies for the delay. We are now ready. This is the first of three, over 3 separate days, 3 commemorations to Rania Ibrahim, Fatia Hassan and Hania Hassan. The people on the table are Ragad Altikriti, who I understand is an interpreter. Good morning, thank you. And Rasha Ibrahim, who is Rania's sister. Would you like to introduce who else we have on stage with you?
We've got Ahmed, Rasha's husband, and we've got Mary Weingarte from Bat Murphy. And I'm going to read a statement on behalf of Rasha, and then we will see the film.
Very good.
My name is Rasha Ahmed Adli Ibrahim. I have prepared the statement and film in memory of my sister, Rania Ahmed Adli Ibrahim, and her two daughters, my nieces, Fathiya and Hania, who died in their home in flat 203 on the 23rd floor of Grenfell Tower. Rania and I were born in Aswan, a city on the banks of the Nile in southern Egypt, to a large and loving family. In 2009, Rania moved to the UK while I stayed behind in Egypt. I felt her loss very keenly, but we kept in close contact and our lives continued in parallel, hers in London and mine in Egypt. I met my husband Ahmed in 2010, the same year she met her husband Hassan. We both married in 2011. In 2012, Rania gave birth to her daughter Fathiya. We always called her Fufu. My son Muaz was born just a few months later, in February 2013. Rania came to visit Egypt with little Fufu when Muaz was just 4 months old. In 2014, Rania had a second little daughter, Hania, and then came to Egypt to attend our mother's funeral in November that year. In 2016, she visited Egypt twice, in March and in December, for our brother Mahmoud's wedding and for the birth of my little daughter, Sidra.
Just pause for a second. There's some people just taking their seats. Thank you.
Then, in January 2017, she had to go back to London with the children. That was the last time I saw them in person, though we continued to talk daily on Skype and FaceTime. It is very difficult for me to think or talk about what came next. It has been so hard. After that terrible night came a cruel time of false hopes and rumors. I came here thinking I would be able to lay my loved ones to rest. But there were then months of uncertainty before they were identified and buried. To this day, the questions remain in my mind and plague me about what exactly happened. It is very important for me to take part in this process of questioning, of finding out the truth. It is so important for me to understand how it could come about that I have lost Rania, my beloved sister, while my children, who are still so young, have lost their little cousins. I cannot lay them to rest yet.
Thank you. I think the second part of this is going to be a film, which was made, I know, in preparation for this by Rasha. And if the lights can be dimmed, we can watch the film.
أنا أكبر من رانيا ب4 سنين. سبحان الله، يعني أنا فاكرة يوم ولادتها مش بنساه، مع إن سني كان صغير، بس سبحان الله فاكراه يعني. يعني كبرت قدامي سبحان الله، كنت بخاف عليها كأني أمها يعني، رغم صغر سني أنا برضو طفلة زيها. يعني احنا كبرنا مع بعض، كنا أكتر اتنين حتى في الشبه نشبه بعض، كنا مرتبطين ببعض جامد. يعني كانت هي طفلة خجولة يعني، مش بتتكلم كتير أو يعني. أنا عندي كل الصور من ساعة ما كنا لسه، يعني عمرها كان 3 سنين ولا حاجة. يعني كنا بنحب الصور كتير سبحان الله. يعني احنا وبنات لينا صور كتيرة مع بعض لو أطفال. دي أنا اللي لابسة كحلي ولابسة فستان أبيض، دي رانيا. دي أنا ورانيا. كانت مرحة جدا جدا يعني، لينا ذكريات كتيرة يعني كنا بنضرب بعض كتير ونضحك ونتخاصم ونتصالح. يعني كل اللي في وشي ده منيها هي خرابيز. هي أكثر مني وأنا أطول منها، فهي كانت تشعلك فيا كده أهو. وبعد ما نخلص خناقة تضحك وتقول لي أنت داري وشك لما أنا. سبحان الله هي كانت حد جميل، مش عشان أختي رانيا، حد طيب، حد بيحب الضحك ويحب الحياة هي كل الذكريات سبحان الله. يعني كان في مواقف كتير كتير. يعني احنا كنا بنسافر القاهرة مع بعض على طول، لنا مواقف كتيرة في القاهرة. في أسوان يعني هي لو بتطبخ مثلا بتعمل بيتزا ولا حاجة وتروح جايبة شوية دقيق وتروح حتفاهم عليا ونبقى كلنا شكلنا أبيض. أو يعني أكتر حاجة فاكراها وبتيجي في دماغي كانت هي وفوفا بنتها وأنا ومعاذ وحمادة أخويا وباقي إخواتي يعني اللي في أسوان. ففضلت تجيب البيض، تحدف البيض ونحدف البيض على بعض ونشوف مين هيخبط التاني أكتر. وكل حاجة في التلاجة فضلنا نحدف بيها بعض. سبحان الله اليوم ده مش قادرة أنساه خالص، لأن هي هزمتني هي وأخويا حمادة وفضلوا عليا جامد. سبحان الله يعني طلعت أجري في الشارع منهم. لسه قريب، ده 2016 مش بعيد. سبحان الله في بالي على طول لأن ضحكنا كتير وهي صورتنا وشكل البيض واحنا شكلنا متبهدل. سبحان الله أكتر موقف يمكن فاكراه. وهي بالذات رانيا صعب إنها تبكي، صعب تشوفي دموعها. يعني يمكن أنا أقدر أطلع مشاعري وأعبر عن اللي جوايا، لكن هي لأ. سبحان الله احنا طلعنا مع بعض، حتى اشتغلنا مع بعض، كنا في مدرسة واحدة. طلعنا اشتغلنا، أنا اشتغلت في صيدلية وهي جت اشتغلت معايا، وخدنا يعني مدة مع بعض يعني لحد ما هي سافرت واحنا كنا شغالين في نفس المجال. يعني كانت هي بتحب التعليم، بتحب تعرف، تحب تتعلم أي جديد. يعني حتى ما جت هنا كانت كنا راجعين من الشغل مع بعض، كنا بنشتغل الصيدلية مع بعض. دي كنت راجعة من الشغل وهي كانت رايحة تشتري عشاء وخدتها نتصور هي وعيال أختي. الصورة دي كانت بتقولي ما تطلعهاش لحد يشوف. هي درجة هتشتمني طبعا. رانيا أكتر حد تشبه أمي، حتى في الطول بتاع القامة. هما الاتنين يعني قصيرين شبه بعض، ملامح الوش يعني يشبهوا بعض كتير خالص. سبحان الله. أمي كانت ست عادية، يعني هي مش متعلمة بس كانت طيبة خالص لدرجة يعني تستفزك. يعني طيبتها يعني ساعات لما كانت تعمل مواقف كنت أقول لها ليه كده. رانيا سبحان الله زي أمي، نفس الطيبة، نفس إن هي حاجتها ممكن تديها لأي حد مهما كانت غالية أو هتلبسها لأول مرة وقلت لها دي عجبتني تديها لك على طول. دي اسورة رانيا وده خاتمها. الاسورة دي لما نزلت سنة 2014 في عزاء أمي هو طب فسبحان الله يعني قلت لها رشا عندي ذهب كتير وعايزاكي تلبسي دي في ايدك وما تجلحهاش ابدا. مش ايدي بتترعش. يعني سبحان الله احنا حتى ما كبرنا وخلفنا اطفال كنا برضو احنا اطفال بنلعب في اي وقت ونضحك في اي وقت حتى في عز حزننا مثلا ممكن نضحك. يعني مرتبطين خالص ببعض، نفس الطباع، نفس الاسلوب، حتى سرنا مع بعض، كلامنا مع بعض عملت لي ميل على السكاي وبقيت اكلم على سكاي بيه على طول. يعني كانت هي لما بتطبخ حاجة تفضل حاطة الايباد قدامها وتفضل تحكي وتطبخ وتعمل، تقولي بصي انا بعمل ايه النهارده، وانا نفس الشيء. يعني لدرجة لو غسلت البوتاجاز ولا شوف انا عملت الطريقة دي كانت جميلة النهارده، تقولي لا كويسة هجربها انا كمان. حتى هي على الفيس انا وريتك في مرة كاتبالي ان انا لو نزلت اسوان هنزلها عشان خاطرك انتي، وحشني الضرب والتكسير والبتاع والذكريات الجميلة. سبحان الله هي كانت بتحب كل الأطفال يعني، وعمرها ما حسس الطفل إن هي كبيرة. ما بتحبش حد يقول لها خالته رانيا أو أنت رانيا أو لا رانيا، ما حدش يقول لي، لأن هي ما كانتش مقتنعة يعني إن أنا بكبر. فما ولدت معاذ فرحت خالص وقالت لي لا ده ولدي أنا بحب الولاد. نزلت 12 2016 وقعدت معايا لحد ما ولدت صدرة بنتي. فهي قالت لي المرة دي أنا اللي هولدك، وتضحك. صورت صدر أول ما طلعت ونزلتها على الفيس وكتبت يعني ربنا رزقنا بصدرة المنتهى. صورة فوفا ومعاذ بحبها خالص اللي هما في الشارع. هنا فوفا هي وبتعاقب معاذ في الشارع برضو قاعد خايف. هي كانت شخصيتها قوية وتحسيها فوفا يعني رغم ان هي طفلة. كان فرح اخويا وبعديها استنت لما ولدتني وبعدين مشيت. كان اخر مرة شفتها 1/2017 قبل الحادثة بكام شهر. في اخر اسبوع ده يوميا كانت بتكلمني بالتليفون، مش انترنت، لكن هي كل شويه تقول لي انتي وحشاني. خلت فوفا كلمتني، كانت دي اخر مره اكلم فيها فوفا. في كل يعني من ساعه ما جيت هنا من ساعه الحادثه انا سامعه صوتها في وداني. يعني كنت لما بعمل حاجه لازم اسالها يا روني انا هعمل كده ايه رايك. سبحان الله دلوقتي بقعد اتكلم معاها وسامعه صوتها في وداني، حتى ما بكون متعصبه بحسها بتهدي. على طول ماسكه الفيس بفضل اقلب يعني ادور كانت بتقول لي ايه اي كلمه. سبحان الله بضحك وابكي لما اشوفها. بتكلم على طول مش احيانا، يعني على طول بكتب لها او بتكلم كلام. لحد دلوقتي بكلمها اي حاجه بتحصل معايا كويسه او وحشه بكتبها لها. رانيا سايبالي كميه ذكريات يعني لا يمكن تنتهي لحد ما اموت. دي اخر صوره تصورها سوا اللي هي شهر يناير. اكتر صوره بحبها اخر صوره، ولما حد بيشوف الصوره بيقول لي مين رانيا ومين رشا. مفتقدة أنا أسمع صوتها. هي كانت بتحب الحياة خالص يعني سبحان الله خالص يعني. هي كانت كلها إيجابية ونشاط كانت عبارة عن ضحك ماشي على الأرض يعني سبحان الله. ابتسامة كده، مفيش حد ما يقعد مع رانيا ما يضحكش. أنا مجرد ما تكلمني في التليفون بحس إنها خدت طاقة إيجابية أقدر أكمل وأتعامل مع باقي الناس سبحان الله. دلوقتي مش عارفة، مش حاسة حاسة إني ضعفت وكبرت حاسة إني اتكسرت.
That was a very moving piece of work. Thank you so much for that. So we have a position where the next presentation is going to need to be after lunch because there are some technical difficulties. So in fact, I'm going to have to change the order a little, which is not expected. And I'm going to be asking the Chukar family to go next. The presentation for them they're not expecting that at the moment, so I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you to give us a few moments to get that sorted out. I don't know if you want to stay where you are, because I know you don't want to keep coming and going, but we will need a few minutes.
Right. Well, before we decide on that, can I just say thank you very much. That was a very moving film, and I could tell it was difficult for you to make it. And I'm very glad that you shared it with us. Thank you. Now, Mr. Richmond, although I'm quite happy to sit here, I suspect you and everyone else would prefer to rearrange yourselves without me being here. So I'm going to rise. I'll rise for as long as you find it necessary to make the arrangements.
Thank you very much
All right?
indeed.
Thank you very much.